Good morning. Welcome everyone to our third WTH webinar training session. We're glad to see so many of you joining us, some repeat visitors. My name is Leslie and I'll be moderating today. This is the third of a series of 5 webinars. If you navigate to our website, WTHGIS.com, and click on the banner, it will take you to a webinar menu page where you can register for or explore other topics of discussion in more detail. We have a total of 3 sessions available that will cover the new address wizard, the parcel split wizard, and thinkgis.com. Our topic for today's session is the new address wizard, where we will go over utilization of the standard address tool, utilization of the NG911 address tool, and various tips and tricks. If there is something that isn't making sense or you would like more information on, we invite you to post a question in our Q&A tab that you can access in the Teams toolbar above. From there, you can submit a question in the side discussion bar. After we are done here today, you will receive an email that will have 2 things. First is a survey link where we ask that you provide feedback on how we did here today. On that survey will also be a section where you can request more in-depth training on some features we may not have time to cover in today's session. If you would like more information, please leave a brief description of what you would like to review so we can have the appropriate team member reach out to you. The second thing to watch for in that email will be a link to a recording of today's session. We've had some users unable to access that link in the past, so we want to be sure that you know the link will be available on our website webinar registration page to access at any time, to bookmark and review at your own pace, or to use it as a tool when training new employees. Now I'll turn the session over to Corey. Corey is a GIS consultant and customer service tech with roughly 7 years of experience in land information and public safety work. Take it away, Corey.
Good morning, everyone. Glad you can join us. Let me pull up my map here. Going to be talking about addressing today, specifically our address wizard, as Leslie said. I want to kind of review the different types of center lines and address points just to kind of point out how our tool works. The way our tool works is, first and foremost, it tries to use the center line here for its range data to try to place a point. If you have a road layer like this one, where, as you can see, is just a single feature, there's just a feature name, no range data, you're not going to have range data go off of, so it's going to use addresses. So if you were going to place a point here, you have an address here for the Rhonda Street, and then we have to pan over here a little bit, and here's our closest other Rhonda Street. So sometimes whenever we do this, we're going to have to use the tool slightly differently than just the default to make that work. The other option for a center line, I'm going to go and open up my other map here. So here is the same city area. And this one you can see over here on the left side, or if I open up, it has range data. So left from, left to, right from, right to. And that is what the tool is going to default to try to use to place the address for us, rather than trying to use just the addresses that are already on the map. So if you don't have range data and you'd like to help getting that set up, feel free to call us. We can help you work towards that process. If you just have roads, that's just tool still works. I can show you how to work that and everything. So it's not a big deal not to have that. Then the third layer is NG911, which it is just a more information in the actual layer. So the tool works the same. The tool fills in all that information for you, so it makes it really handy. But there are 3 ways to do center lines in the map currently. So let's go back to my first one. To get to the tool for the addressing, you would normally go to Tools, Show Map Editing Tools, and then under this Advanced, Production, and then there's 2 options, the New Address Wizard and the new NG911 Address Wizard. Depending on if you are editing a Engine 911 address or a what we call a ThinkGIS formatted address layer, be able to choose the correct tool. So the Engine 911 is for the Engine 911 addresses. The new address wizard will be for the normal ThinkGIS formatted addresses. I can also have a button at the top here. So I placed a button on the top of my maps for easy use. And if you need to add that button to your map, give us a call. We'll be happy to jump in and show you how to get that on there. So let's try adding an address now. So I'm going to hit my button up here. And with most of our tools, if you look down here at the very bottom left, it'll say pick point representing address location. So it'll normally give you some instructions on where to go, what to do next with each one of our tools. So we're going to put an address here on Gloria Street. We're going to click our point, and then if we look down here at the left again, it says pick point on road. So this is going to be where we think the driveway is going to be, or where we think the best location to represent this address. Since this is maybe a new construction, we don't know where the driveway is going to be. We're just going to put it here in the center for this example. Now, with the map, it's going to pop up this tool here, and it's going to basically just check to make sure we like the reference points. So as you can see here, 537 North Gloria, it's going to use a reference, or sorry, 534 over here. It's using the same side of the road. So 534, it's saying there's a reference point here. And then 522, it's saying, oh, it's using this 515. I need to watch what I'm reading here. 515 is across the road, but it's using that as a reference to the side. So it's going to assign 522. If you're happy with that, you can click OK. If you wanted to change one of those reference points, you can hit the 0.1 or 0.2, and the 0.1 is the low number, the 0.2 is the high number, and it says reference 1, reference 2. You can adjust those to match a different one. We'll do that on the next example, but I just wanted to show you how this tool will pop up. And this is on a center line layer that's just a roads layer or highways layer that doesn't have range data. So it's just using the addresses to reference where to go. So we're going to hit OK on the continue, and it's going to pop up our addressing tool here. It's going to go ahead and fill in that house number. It's going to grab the direction and the street for us, and this is based on a neighboring addresses. So if there was a misspelling or if there was no direction in one of these or both of these, it's not going to fill that direction in for you. So that's something you will have to check yourself to make sure you're filling in all these blanks. Then it's going to fill in the community for us. It's basing that off of these other addresses. Then you have in our layer here, you have a comment and a discrepancy. If you needed to mark some kind of note, or you needed to say, you know, we need to verify the address or verify name, you can do that kind of tracking. So whenever we hit OK, it's going to ask, do we want to add a duplicate feature? I think that's because I had one on here earlier for training, but normally you're not going to get this window. So we're going to hit OK. And then it's going to show our 522 North Gloria Street is popped up. And basically at that point, you're done addressing that point. Then whenever you're done, I like to do a file save just to save my work so I don't lose whatever it is I've been working on. And then you can sync that up to send that to everybody else or continue addressing. So we're going to address one up here, this address up here that I talked about in the beginning. So let's center on that address point. Now, whenever we use the address tool here, we're going to click on the point where we want the address, and then we're going to click on the road. Now, it's going to show us, you can see the map kind of panned. Down here is where that address is, and it's saying it should be 213. But it's having to go all the way over to this other block and grab the 114 address to reference. Let's say I want to change that because I know that on this East Rhonda Street, that the beginning range for this should be 200. Instead of going off this 114, we're going to choose, I'll move this to the center here so it's easier to see. You're going to choose this reference point 1, hit OK. We're going to choose the intersection, and then we will type 200 and OK. And you'll see that this was 213, and now it is showing 219. So that is using that updated reference point that I've given it to help it be more accurate in the correct addressing. This is really helpful out in the county or someplace where you have maybe half a mile between the nearest address and where you're putting an address. So we will do a county example here in a little bit to show that. But whenever you're ready, just hit OK. And then your house, your street, your community are all filled in. We're going to hit OK. And there it placed our map, our appointment for us. So now, if we wanted to address an additional address, let's say they're going to put another property right here. As simple as click on our tool, click on our point where we want the house, click on the road where we want the driveway. You'll see here it grabs two references, that 522 we placed earlier, that 534, which is this address. So it's going to say 525. One thing you'll want to do is just check to make sure when you're this close to another address to make sure it did do the numbering correctly. The tool sometimes will maybe use the reference point in the wrong spot, and that's where you can adjust that to make that work better. Especially true whenever you're dealing with a curved road or a road that has very far off references. Sometimes it'll give you an address point that maybe doesn't quite make sense compared to its neighbor. And that's where you can, whenever you hit continue here, you can actually just type in anything you'd like. So let's say 537, 525. I'd like to put a little more space between those because I think we ought to do 523, or maybe the person asked for 523, depending on how you do your addressing. We can type that number in here before we hit OK, and it'll actually use the number we type in, not the tool that it came up for us. So that is dealing with a city with a nice simple grid that we know where the block numbers are. We know that this was the 200 block. We knew this was the 500 block. That makes it really easy to figure that out. So I'm going to move to an example that is more in like a cul-de-sac area and like a housing development. So we have this area here, and you'll see like here on Steve's Circle, it's a curved road. It goes around here and comes back to the Leslie Court. So on that, whenever we place an address, it's not going to have a reference to start here, and it's only going to have this address. So we're going to place an address right here, and I'll show you how we walk through that tool. Use our address tool. We're going to click where we want the house, and we're going to pick our point on the road. Now it's saying the 115's here, and you'll see, let me zoom out just a little bit. You'll see it's using this reference 138. So it's actually going past, and then it's going back to assign this 109. If you're happy with that number, which it looks like it did a pretty good job, this is 115, 109 would make sense here. It's got the odds or the evens on the correct side of the road. You can just hit continue and OK. If you don't like the way this address is and you think this reference point should be lower or higher, that's where you can adjust these reference points again. We're going to go ahead and hit OK here. You're going to see that it fills in our house, fills in our street name. You notice it doesn't put in a direction because we don't have a direction out here. And then it fills in our community. So we'll hit OK. And then it places our point. So if we zoom out just a little bit here, let's say we want to put something along Leslie Court. You'll notice there is one address down here. If we go up here a little bit, you'll see that there's one address right here. It isn't, the label's not showing it. So that's the only two addresses it has to reference. But because the tool is going to use both of those, let's place a house right here. So we're going to use our tool, click where the house belongs, click on the road. You'll see that it's using 162. So the reference it's using is 236 and 17. Now, if we zoom out, that 17 is actually up here. So this is where you want to adjust that reference one. We're going to choose right there. Tell it that is 17. And then we're going to adjust our reference two to here. And we're going to do 236. I think this is just a display issue. It's not showing it in the correct spot. But we're going to place this address 162 One thing you can do to check your math is with the measure tool, you can start at the beginning of this road, which we're going to say that this road starts at 1, and we measure down the road. We get down to our house, and if you look at the very bottom left, it says the house is plus 147. I realize that number is really small in that very bottom left, but that's one way for the tool, another tool you can use to check your math. And that address there is 140, is saying it should be 147. This is where having the centerline address ranges really helps. And whenever we get to that next step, I'll show you how that address changes or how one of the neighboring them changes. We'll probably delete these before we start over just so we can start fresh. But as you can see with the cul-de-sacs, sometimes these curved roads can throw you for a wrench, and you do need to do some figuring out on your own or look at the other addresses around to make sure the numbers make sense. Let's move to a county example on this centerline type with the NOAA ranges to get started with that. So here's a area. There's a state highway going east and west here, and then we have some county roads. If we look at some of the other addresses, you'll see like this one's 1926. And then if we zoom up here a little bit, we'll see that this is West 150 South. So our addresses are going down. This is 1900. So that means this right here is about 2000. So this is the kind of stuff I like to do before I get started, just so I have an idea on a reference of where I'm at in the county. As you do your own county, you'll know the area better, and you'll be able to know this a lot easier. So let's go to place an address here. So we've got a split out of this field. They're going to build a house here on the corner. Going to use our address wizard. Going to click on the address, and then let's put it on the highway and show you how that tool works. So it's going to reference this 2390 address on the highway, and then it's going to come back to this 1472. So that's the two closest addresses. Comes out to 2022. I'm going to go and hit continue so you can see the window better. So that's the address it gives us. I think when you look at that, you're going to say, wait a minute, there's the 2000, 200. So that's where the 2000 should be here. And this is too high. So if we hit cancel, we can actually adjust our reference points after it's already tried to give us a number. So we're going to adjust our reference point too, because that's our high number. And then we're going to click here at the intersection, and we're going to say that is 2000. And okay, and you'll see now adjust the address to 1964. So that address actually makes sense now. So now we can hit continue. And you'll see that as you adjust those reference points, it will adjust to make those addresses correct. If you wanted to try to hone in a little bit more, you could adjust this reference point 1 to here and set that to 1500. And now it is 1962. I think that's the same. So it did pretty well there. So that's how you're going to set that address. You'll see that it changed the community to Darren. This is a different area in the county. So it has a new community. It already grabbed that off of the addresses, and it filled in our state road. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK there. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this address. We're going to create one that comes onto this 200 West. So we're going to use our tool, click where we want the house, and we're going to come over to South 200 West. Now, this you'll see, it did not pop up any extra windows. All it shows is right on our pointer, it says 0.1. So we're going to choose our start or finish. So this was the 2000. We're going to have to zoom out just a little bit. Come up here to our West 150 South. So we're going to choose our 0.1, our beginning. We're going to say that is 1500. And then we're going to come down here to our state highway, and we're going to say that is 2000, which we figured out earlier. Kind of before I get started, I like to figure out what these roads are so then I can set up my reference points. So we're going to choose 2000 and hit OK. So now you can see our reference points marked, and it's going to mark that as 1954. That address sounds good. It's under 2000. It's in that 1900 area. So we're going to hit OK. And you'll see here, it does not fill in our community. It's because it doesn't have an address anywhere along here to reference to grab that for us. So you're going to have to fill that in for yourself. You're also going to see that it grabbed the whole street name instead of putting the direction and the 200 west here. And that's something you'll have to modify yourself also on this particular type of center line, because the map is just grabbing that center line name. It assumes that whole name is what you want. It doesn't realize that direction should be moved over. So that's something you'll just have to do yourself manually if there's no addresses for it to reference off of. So whenever you have this window up, you'll just want to double check all these fields are filled in the way you want. The map is just going to use the data that's provided to it. So just try to be careful as you're creating these to make sure you move things around as necessary. So we're going to hit OK, and it'll place a point. So same thing in the county here. Let's say we want to put an address here. This is going to be right on the highway. We're going to click on point. Click on the highway. And again, it's going to come down and try to use this 2390. And the point it's saying, it's really small on my screen too. It looks like it is 1831. Let's go ahead and adjust that reference point to again and see if that changes. So we're going to choose there, type 2000, hit OK. And now you'll see it's 1793. So it actually did adjust it a little bit. And this would be more correct, in my opinion, of what it should be based on, the grid of the county here. And this being the 2000 address right there. So we're going to hit OK. And you'll see here it filled in our community and it filled in our street name because it had address points to reference. So that's something just to make sure you check as you're doing things. And then as you make addresses, always try to remember to save often in case the map hiccups or you lose power or something like that. Don't want to lose your work. So that is our county example with that. Let's go to a much easier whenever we have our center lines that have address data. So we're going to go back to our city. I'm going to delete, oops. Oh, if I went to lock layers for editing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these addresses we created earlier. So we can start fresh here. I guess we'll go and delete this one here too. So this layer, if we pull up the center line, you'll see that we have our street name, our direction, our left from, right from, all of that filled in. So the tool is going to use that information now instead of just the addresses around. So let's do this example here, where whenever before it had to come over here to grab this 114 as a reference. And remember, we didn't like that because we knew that the 200 block started right here. So now whenever we create this address, which we're going to click on the house, click on the road, you'll see that it came up with 219, which is the same as what we had whenever we changed our reference for this section right here in the road to 200. So it's auto grabbing the 219, the east, and the Rhonda Strip. Now, once in a while, I'll find that it doesn't grab the community, and you're just going to have to fill that in for it. And that's one thing you're just going to have to watch as you use the tool. It will sometimes not put the community in for you, so you'll have to do that. I think that's because of this left and right community. It's expecting it to be one, and we've updated that. In the NG911 tool, it does grab the community correctly for you. So that's a nice upgrade whenever you get to the NG911, which we will be going over that shortly. So we hit OK now. It's going to place our address. There's our East Rhonda Street. Now let's go ahead and do our one over here on the North Gloria. We'll click here and then click on the road, and you'll see that it did 528 North Gloria. Again, didn't fill in our community. We're going to fill that in with Dexter and OK. And now we have our address. So with the center lines, you'll find that it doesn't pop up that range tool for the reference points. But if you do want to use it for some reason, let's go over here for this 530 next to this 537. So we're going to click there and then click on the road. So let's say we want to use that tool. If you hit cancel, it'll pop up that tool for us. And it's going to show us what references it's trying to use to set that. And let's say we want to switch it so then it's using this 537 address instead of this 534. Let's go to point 2. going to choose where the driveway is, and we're going to tell it that that is 537, and okay. And you'll see now it made that 531. So for this side of the road and just looking at the where that driveway is, that 531 maybe makes more sense. Or we just like the fact that it's referencing the house next to it rather than the one across the street. And basically, it's just going to go in front of the house whenever it references. It doesn't know where the driveways are. So sometimes it's nice to use this tool to reference those driveways because the driveway may be like this one side of the house instead of wanting to use just the front door. So we're going to hit OK. And you'll see that it has 531 North Florida Street and Dexter. So we just hit OK. And it places our address. So let's go to our new housing development area again. I'm going to go ahead and delete these addresses again, just so we can show those two exact spots. So remember, this one's 162. We'll do it first so we can remember that number. So we're going to do this address again, and it's going to use the range data. And if we click on this center line, we can see what the range is. 101 to 169 is what it's saying this range is. So we'll see if it gets us a 162 here or not. So we're going to click here and here. See, it's actually saying that should be 142, which if we measured earlier, remember it was 140 something, I forget the exact number, from the edge of the road. That makes more sense. So having range data really improves the accuracy of the tool and makes the tool just work a lot better. So you'll see here, again, it doesn't fill in our community. We're going to have to fill that in for ourselves and hit OK. And there's our Leslie Corp. So let's try this Steve Circle. Let's do an address here. Actually, let's do an address across the road also, just to show it'll do the correct left and right side. So let's put one here next to the 115 just to show that. So it's saying that should be 107. We'll give it our community and OK. So let's go across the street and see what it does for there. So we do this, click on Steve Circle, and you'll see there, it automatically switched to 108. It knew that we were on the other side of the road. Fill in our community as usual. It fills in our street name and OK. So let's go over here to Rex Trail. You can see this curve right here. Let's say that someone split this off and they're going to build a apartment here or something. And with this curve and these densely populated addresses, you'll see that this one is 222. This one's 306 over here. That's the references it's going to use, or actually more like that is what it's going to reference automatically. So whenever we use our tool and we click here and we click here, you're going to see that it's going to give us 236. That address would totally work fine. But if you wanted to make it more accurate, we can hit cancel. We can change our reference point to, oh, you can see here it's actually using this 222 and then 213. See, that's what I wanted to show you here. This 213, it's not referencing the 213 from up here. It's referencing 213 right here, which should be incorrect. And that's where we have to tell it where those are at. So we're going to, let's adjust our 0.1, and we're going to say the driveway for 222 is here. We'll go 222. And then we're going to do our reference 2, and we're going to say this 306, which will zoom out a little bit. 306 is down. Actually, we can do this 269 if we want, and show that you don't have to use the same side of the road. So this is the 269, so 269, and OK. So you'll see it changed our reference points, and now it's 238. So that address makes more sense than the 214 that it was trying to give us before, because the 214 should have been maybe here or actually over here in between this 202 and 218. So sometimes you will have to, on these curved roads, even with range data, sometimes it will give you, even with the range data, sometimes it will give you some weird addresses, and you'll just have to use the tool to reference your reference points. So it's super easy to change. It's handy to use. You'll see it filled in our Dexter for us. I think that's because it's using these addresses as reference instead of just a center line. So that's what I say. Sometimes it will fill that in. Most of the time, I think you do have to fill it in with this particular type of range, but that's something easy to check as you're doing it. And we can click OK, and you'll see that it's put us our 238 Rex Trail. So let's go to our county example now. So let's go ahead and delete these examples in county. So let's say they split this property in two. We're going to put an address here and an address here. This one's going to go to the highway. This one's going to go to our center line over here. So let's do our highway address first, just to show. So you'll see that it's 1954. We knew that this road here was the 200, so that makes sense. It's under 2,000. Everything fills in, but you'll notice it doesn't fill in the community because it's using that center line. So we're going to have to choose our Darren for out here in the county. And okay. Now let's do our address here that goes to the 200 West. Show you how it doesn't need reference points. As you remember last time, we had to give it the reference points of 2,000 here, 1,500 up here that we can't see off screen, but it did that automatically because it's able to use that range data. So it's a lot faster tool to use, especially out here in the county where everything's on the grid and everything's split up nice. And then we're just going to choose our community and okay. Now let's go over here. We haven't done any addressing over here. Somebody's built a house here, and then there's some utility right here. We'll go ahead and address both of those. We can actually zoom in closer if we want. Use our address tool. We're going to put a house here and say the driveway is going to be there. So there's 1898. You can see there's 1926 here. That address probably makes sense. We do have to fill in our community. South 150 West. You'll see that's one thing example I wanted to show you. You'll notice it did grab the direction correctly this time. We didn't have to move that around like in the other example. So this tool is much more user-friendly, and then it fills in a lot of this information for you automatically. When we get to the engine 911, it fills in even more. So it'll be fun to show you that. So let's do this utility. I think this is some kind of water pump. 1907. So you'll see, this was 1898. This one's just a little bit farther down, which I should have done where the driveway was, but I just went in front of the building. But you'll see it's 1907. You'll see that these are the evens on the left side and then odds on the right. It did that properly. And we're just going to choose our community and okay. So that is the new address wizard with data that center lines like that. Now let's go to our example with NG911 data. And this one, luckily, oh, I forgot to save. So that's one thing you want to make sure you save. If I would hit no here, we would lose all the data we just did. So it's definitely important to do a file save as you're moving along. I was just having so much fun making addresses, I forgot to save. So one thing to note is you'll notice whenever I start using this tool, I am not going to Tools, Lock Layers for Editing, and choosing my NG911. It actually automatically locks the layer for you. Both tools do that, the regular address layer and the other layer. If for some reason you did have two addresses, like maybe you are a county E911 and you just do the county addresses, but you have a city address layer, whenever you hit this tool, it'll pop up and ask which address layer you want to edit. And once you've done that once, it'll continue using that address layer as you're editing along. So that's a nice feature that it automatically locks this layer for you. So here's our NG911 center lines. Let's double click one of these just to show you. There's a whole lot more fields to have to fill in on these now. So you'll see there's ESN numbers, there's the parity, evens and odds for the left and right, got postal codes, have this agency ID. There's a lot more fields that have to fill in. So if you were just going to hit new feature and create a feature, that's just going to come in blank. Where if you use the tool, so we're going to click on the house, and then we're going to click on the center line, you'll see it fills in almost everything for us. This postcode down here actually will fill in automatically. That's a automatically filled field. I'll show you here in a second. So that's why that's a question mark. But you'll see that it fills in our state, our country, our ESN, fills in our county, fills in our agency ID. This NGU ID, I think that's an autofill thing also. So that may or may not be filled in this exact example, but that is something you can set to automatically fill for you. But you'll see it grab the Rhonda, grab the street, grab the direction for us. It put in our municipality. And then if we go to this legacy tab, well, I guess I'll also show you, here's your address number. If you had suffix, or if you had unit IDs or something like that, you're going to have to fill those in potentially yourself because it's just going to use the center line data. But, if you had a unit, A, B, or 1, 2, 3, you're going to fill that in down here. But the rest of this data it grabs from that center line, it fills it all in for you, makes it really fast. This legacy information, you have to come in and fill this in. You'll see it fill that all in for us all automatically. So we didn't have to do the direction, the street name, street type, all of that information fully filled in for us. So we can just hit OK. So this tool with Engine 911 layers is the fastest, easiest one to use. It's pretty much hands off. If we double click this address to show, you'll see it filled in our postcode. It does that automatically. There's our site NGUID. It filled that in on it for us automatically. This date updated, it does that just based on today's date automatically. If you wanted to change that because maybe you're actually wanting to change that, you can always click here and change those dates. But the next thing is like the data updated, that's just going to change automatically for you. So that's your Engine 911. We can do another one here. You'll see how fast it is. Choose where we want it. Choose on the center line. It pops up. See, it fills all that in for us. Legacy is all filled in. And we hit OK. So we're going to do one over here, which you'll see this 537 is kind of like a skew. We're going to talk about tips and tricks on how to move some of these, but for right now, let's ignore that. So let's say they put a house here and they are wanting to add a mother-in-law suite or something, and they need an address for that. So you're going to click here and click here. So it's using the range data to come up with 533. 533 makes sense. It's between this 528 and 534. But let's say you don't like the numbers it came up with. You can still hit cancel, and it'll come up with these reference points again for you. So you'll see it's using that 537 right here where that driveway is, which is the correct spot. That's why I placed that, because I was doing some testing on my own outside, just testing around. And you'll see the 528 here. Well, let's say this 537 actually should be up higher. Well, let's say we want to use this 534 instead because we like where that driveway is, reference point. Let's say we want to use this 515. You can adjust those in this place. So let's adjust it to use this 534 instead of the 537 just for fun. So we're going to hit point 2. We're going to choose the point where that driveway is, 534, and OK. You'll see it moves those reference points, and it now does this 31 as our address. So we hit OK, and you'll see it filled in that new address for us. All the other information's filled in for us. We'll go to our legacy. All that information's filled in for us. And we hit OK. And because those addresses are so close together, I'll zoom in. You can see it places our point. Always remember, do a file save as you're doing these addresses. You don't want to lose your step. Let's go ahead and go to that cul-de-sac area. So you'll see here, these are the same basic areas that I've left blank. We're going to do a new address. Let's put one here. So you'll see that did 114. So I did this lot right here, 114 Leslie Court. You'll notice there's no direction or anything because that isn't in the center line here. Fills in our ESN. You'll see that's a different number. It was 101 in town, 102 out here in the a little bit farther away from town. Our postcode, like I said earlier, it fills automatically. You'll see the municipality filled in. That's something you won't have to worry about with your Engine 911. It'll actually fill that in for you. And our legacy is all filled in. So we'll hit OK. And there's your address there. So let's do some of this Steve Court. Let's say they decide to build this out. So we're going to do an address here. See it as 106. Let's just knock out a bunch of addresses here real quick. Let's see. So this one did 114. So this is how fast you can address a cul-de-sac or a new development. And that's where once the auditor's office or whoever does your parcels, your surveyor's office has your parcels in here, you can just start knocking addresses out real fast and start sending those off to the people who are asking for them. And if you don't have that, you can a lot of the times use like if the developer is giving you a plat or some kind of layout of how the lots are, sometimes we can help you bring that in or show you how to draw those lines in kind of temporarily, help draw that in. So if you have a big plat from a big development that's coming in, you're needing addresses, give us a call. We'll be happy to jump on and kind of help you walk through some of the steps to either bring that plot into the map or just help you draw some lines to kind of use as a reference. So then you can see, like you can see all these empty lots. These are all just drawn in by the auditor's office, and then I'm able to address them. You can just see how fast I can just click. It pops up a new address, and okay. So you can go through a whole bunch of addresses really fast. The Engine All-in tool is by far the best tool. It grabs your city, it grabs your municipality, it puts your zip code in, it fills in all your county and ESN and all of that data. It's really great that it just fills all that in for you, and you can just hit OK basically every time you hit one, and goes really fast. So let's go to our county example, just show you how well it works out there. Let's zoom in up here and look at our water pump. So they put this new water pump in, they're needing an address for it. So 1911, we look at our neighboring address, which is something I always like to do when I'm doing addressing. I just like to make sure odds and evens are right. That's a nice thing. This Engine All-in tool does an excellent job of putting the odds and the evens on the correct side. You don't have to worry about it like with that original example where it doesn't know odds and evens, so you have to do that yourself. So that's really nice about this tool. And as you're working with more Engine All-in-one layers, there's more of this tools that are built in that do these things that fill that stuff in for you. That'll be really, really handy. You know, fill in your ESN number. That is based off of the center line, but if you had an ESN like layer that you wanted to use to fill that in rather than the center line, because let's say on this center line here, you can see if I hit cancel, it'll show me the reference points. So that tool is still there anytime you need it. It hides it because it doesn't think you need it for that. But let's say along the center line, this side is one ESN number and this side is another ESN number. The center line will try to fill that in the best it can, but sometimes you want to use the areas that you have drawn. Especially, I actually just helped my home county. They were like exempting a area like that, you know, out of one area. So I helped them adjust their ESN layer, so that way that address will pop up correctly with the right fire department. If they have a fire or ambulance call, they'll know where to go. So sometimes the ESN layer is more accurate and better used than your center line layer to fill that number in. The tool right now is just going to try to use the center line layer. It's just going to use the data that it has. So it will try to use this. If we pull back up our center line, it has an ESN left and right. It's going to try to use those the best it can. But if those aren't accurate or those aren't being updated by you and updated by somebody else, you might want to use the ESN layer that you're creating or you're editing instead. But that can all be set up. You know, give us a call. We'll be happy to walk you through that process. So let's go back to our, let me just use my function key to get me back here. So let's place a house here just to show you how it does the state road. So we click here and click here. And on the Engine All-in-one, you'll see it put the 54, but it didn't fill in this pre-type state road. So I think if we look at this center line, I was going to show you. Yeah, it does have the pre-type. I don't know why I didn't fill that in. I should have filled that in for us. I thought I had an example of that. But that's just one of those things you're just going to have to watch for yourself as you're using the tool. It's not perfect. That's something we can hopefully try to improve. But the state road, you'll fill that in. But the 54, it grabbed that automatically for us. Filled in our municipality, filled in our county, state, ESN, basically the same. Now, you'll see the LST name. It's basing that off of what the center line has. So it has that all spelled out, ST Road 54, like that. And you'll see there's no post type or anything filled in. And then it has that full street name typed in down here. So you can hit OK. You'll see now, because I changed that, it has the state road there. So let's do a county address over here just to show, on one of these county roads, just to show it grabs the address and everything. So you can see where it does the pre-direction is south, 200 west, and then our municipality is Darren. You can see that it grabbed our county, state, US, ESN. So it fills all that in for us. You see, like this is an example. We're in a different ESN zone from earlier. There's 101 in town, 102 just outside of town, and 103 out here in the county. When we go to our legacy, you'll see it has the South 200 West, and then our full streets filled in for us. So it fills in most of these blanks for you, makes it very fast to use, makes everything super easy to create addresses. So let's move on to some of the tips and tricks. I'm going to go back to my first map. Oh, see, I forgot to save again. So make sure you do a file save as you're doing addresses. Don't want to lose your work. So let's go and hit yes to that. So if you are working in an area in town and you have addresses that aren't quite centered on the on top of the houses, or if you want to move them so that they're not like over here like this, like 508 is one of the examples I had picked out. This was one that was created by somebody else, and it was probably just placed in the center of the lot. And let's say we want to move it on top of the house just to indicate exactly where the house is. So we're going to have to do our lock layers for editing to do that. But we're just going to use this move tool right here. Left click to select it. And then to move something, you just click and drag. So I'm holding the left button down as I move that. And you can see the little drag symbol says that. And if I let go, it's going to move it. Now, with most of our tools, if you're done with the tool, you can right click and it'll get you out of the tool. And now I'm back to a regular pointer. Let's say I want to keep moving. Let's say I want to go ahead and shift all these forward just on top of houses. I can just do them one at a time. Let's assume that this one we found out is a little farther forward. Remove it. We can grab this one and just drag to there. And that, all I'm doing is just holding the left button down after I've, you can see the little box. I know it's kind of hard to see on your screen, but whenever I put my mouse over it, highlights. So hold left button and drag. So let's say we wanted to move that to that garage because we're going to give the house a different address. That's how you could do that. The other thing you can do whenever you're doing a move tool like this is, let's say that like this example here, I guess is what I was trying to get to. Let's say that they are building a house here and they have a house here. And let's say you need to move this just farther forward because you want to make room for an address to be able to show up here. Sometimes I'll do that just to make it so that these addresses show up nicer. So you might move that one over, and then you'll use your address tool to create an address here on the backyard. We'll just use the default one that it gives us, and then you can see that address pops up. So before, when that address was more centered on the house, you'll see that it hides that point until you zoom in. So if we zoom in, they'll finally show up. But sometimes if they're crowded like that, you might just move this a little closer to the front of the house. And then as we zoom out, we can even get to, let's see, there's 5. Well, I didn't quite get that one where I wanted it. We can move this over just a little bit more. Maybe up a little bit. Yeah. And that's where sometimes the labeling just a little too big. I made the labeling a little extra big for today's demo. But that's something you can do, is move these addresses around so then you can try not to crowd too much of an area, especially if you have like an apartment with 4 addresses. You might want to stagger them. So you might do an address kind of forward, an address a little bit back, and then another address maybe a little bit forward to be able to show those addresses so they'll show up. Normally your labels won't be maybe quite this big, so it normally works better. Also, some people don't have the street name, they just have the number. So that also makes it less crowded. And that's something you can always mess with your settings on your display. For the editor, you might want these fully spelled out, everything here. But for other users, they may only just want to see the house number. So that's something that as an editor, you may change your display settings compared to what everybody else is seeing, just so while you're editing. So the other example of some things that you can do is some quality control checks. So I have an area here. I think I need to go to my Engine Element 1 to see it. But I have a misspelling in a center line area. So if we go to the center lines, and it'd be the same thing for addresses actually, because I use the address layer to do this. So we're going to use our index, which is this blue button up here. We're going to choose our addresses and do search. And then what's really cool about the map, as you choose one of these drop downs here to search something, it's nice that it gives you all the distinct values. So it just shows each one of these ones. There's lots of different addresses for 150, 254. But you'll see here we have 2 Glorias. We have Gloria IA spelled correctly, and then we have a Gloria AI that I incorrectly spelled on purpose. So it's using the center line to fill this in. So that's something you would want to edit in the center line. But it's also possible someone just had a typo at some point. So we can actually find that address by choosing that and do a search. And you'll see there's a whole list of addresses here. That's basically just the 400 block of the street here that I had Gloria misspell. I did that on purpose just to show you some of the QC you can do. But it's something that I see a lot whenever I help customers is there'll be a strange spelling. There may be an upper lowercase difference, or they put a space or didn't put a space type of thing. That's something that you can try to find in your data and then try to clean it up. So let's say we want to clean up this 404. Let's zoom to it just so we can see where they're at. We can check. Oh, yep. You'll see that the Gloria Street here is misspelled, but the Legacy's not. So that's where you're going to find those typos, is that maybe one is misspelled and one's not. But on the map, you'll see that is using the Legacy address for the labeling. And so we're not going to see it in just everyday data, but whenever you pull up the data, you're going to see it here. So that's where you can just edit that just one at a time, or you can do mass changes from in here. If you want some help with that type of editing, I believe Jason went over some of these type of editing things, but if you want some help editing these mass changes, give us a call. It's pretty easy to do. I'm not going to go over that today. I just want to show some of the QC. You can also do the same kind of thing if you wanted a list, like, my example town that I created here, you can see the roads just stop. I created a just small section of areas, so there aren't a whole lot of addresses. You'll see my addresses. There's only 129 in this town or in this area. But you can also do a advanced reporting, and then you can list distinct field values. So this will give you a list of all of those different like street names, different things like that you can use to help quality control. So if we click that, it'll let us choose which layer we want to look at. Let's look at our addresses. And then we're going to choose our street name. And then it popped up off the screen here. Let me pull it down. But you'll see it basically just pulls up a list of all of those. And you'll see that we still have the two Gloria misspellings because I haven't fixed those yet. But that's another quality control thing you can do, is do a report like this and then either send this to the person who maybe you are only doing addresses and someone else handles the center lines. You found this error in their center lines. You could send this to them and say, hey, I found that, Gloria is misspelled in like one city block. Can you change that for me? Type of thing. It's a handy way to be able to give them a list, give it to someone else, or just for yourself. You could print it out and mark them off as you fix them. You can use it however you'd like. I think Leslie, had some questions. I don't know if we want to do those yet, Leslie.
Hi there. Yes, we have a couple on standby here. The first one would be, you mentioned how with the labels, you could have both the number and the street name, or just the number. Where would you go to change it, say, if you only showed the number currently?
So if you go to your layer settings, this pink button on most maps, there is another style if you don't have the convex layout. So on most settings you're going to deal with are these like first 4 or 5 blanks here. If you want to change the way the labeling, it's under this text. You're going to click on the little ABC, and then it's set up down here in this labeling format box. Whenever you click inside there, it'll actually pop this out so it's a little bigger and easier to operate. So right now we have it set to do address number and address suffix with a little dash in between. And I realize it might be really small on your screen. And then we have the LST values for pre-direction, name, type, post-direction. So if we wanted to get rid of those, we could basically, I'm just going to do a cut because I want to be able to bring them back. But we're just going to get rid of that and OK. And close. And you'll see now we just have the numbers. If you wanted to, same thing with like your address range on your roads, I like to have the range down here. The way this is set up right now, if we go back to our ABC, you'll see it's using the from address left to the right to the address right. Some people like to see both of those, and it's a little busy for me, but some people like to see the left and right. But you can also do, like, if you want to know if there's odds and evens, you could add that. So like you could say, you know, left side, and then we can add, and then our parity left, and okay, and okay. So now we can have left side. How didn't that work? Oh, I have, it's a little too long. Let's just get rid of that. So there is a limit to how much you can have late. There we go. So now you can do left side is even. You know, left side's even, left side's even, left side's even. If we go out to our example out here, you can see the left side's odd, left side's odd, left side's even, left side's odd. So that's one thing you can change in labeling, just so it'd be something on whenever you're the editor, you may have your display totally different than what the viewer normal users are using. And that's something you can play with, is change your display settings around to really help you do your job. And then they can have their display settings to just help them do their job. So you might want to know which side has the evens odds. You don't maybe need the range data because you're going to let the tool do the job. You know, you're going to let the Engine 911 range data do the work. You just want to have the even odds just so you can double check things as you're doing them. It's especially handy with these curved roads that it's easy to get lost, which where you're going, where it's coming from. And that's something you can pretty much do anything you want with these labeling, is you can add all kinds of stuff. Any other questions, Leslie?
Yes. So when you were demonstrating, you were often clicking on your button up in the top toolbar. We have a user who would like to know, how did you switch from the new address to the NG911 address wizard? Can you refresh where to go for that, please?
So what you're going to do is, hopefully as an editor, you're only editing one of these and you're not having to do both. Normally, if you have an engine on one layer, you're just going to edit that. And then on our side in the back end, it's going to create the normal address layer for you automatically. If for some reason you needed both, you could have two buttons up here. And this is actually a light colored button that I just like the looks of better, that I swapped in. There is a dark version of that, and I can show you real quick. Advanced production. So let's say we're on the Engine 911 map. Let's say I want the other address wizard up here because I need to be able to do both. You'll see that's the black button. That's what most people are probably going to have on their map. I switched out to the lighter one because I thought it might look nicer. It's my favorite. It's my preferred version of that. And we can always change that if you want something different too. But this one's going to just use the new address wizard. So now we're going to have both. For me, just for like fun, in my base map, I added a button layer, and that way each map pulls up the right button. It's just a weird custom thing I came up with to make it so then I didn't have to remember to hit the black button for one address and the light button for the other address. I did it that way. But yeah, you could have both if you need them, and we have these other styles of buttons to help you differentiate. You can also just use text in your button thing. So let's say you're normally using the Engine 911 and you want this one to be, I guess, the other way around, but let's assume this one's the Engine 911 one, just to you could just use a text instead. So you could have this one be the regular and then have an Engine 911 for your other tool. And you'll see whenever you put your mouse over them, it does give you a little hover hint to tell you what they are. This one doesn't hover hint because of the way I have it set up, but hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. And then can you summarize how the difference between the two tools, how center lines versus address are utilized, or how some information is pre-populated for the community, the road, subdivision, whatnot?
So the way our tool works is, if there's a good center line layer with ranges, it's going to try to use that data as the default. That's kind of the first thing to look at. The second thing is it will look at addresses around there if they're available. If they're not available, and that's where whenever we go to, if we go back to this example and go to the county, let's delete these real quick. Let's delete both of these just to clear the map off. Don't need to. But this South 200 West, you'll see here, there's no addresses to use as a reference. So whenever we go to set that, you'll see it automatically goes into point one tool because it doesn't have anything to reference at all. So if we do this is 1500, when we go back to here, and we go 2000, and we hit continue. So it's going to give us this 1958 based on those references. You'll see the only thing it filled in was the street because I clicked on the street. So that's the only data it has other than the reference points I just gave it. It doesn't know left or right on which side of the road left and right should be. That's something I forgot to do earlier. If we look over here and can't see that address right there, but I think it's got the even on the wrong side here. But yet something you'd have to figure out ahead of time. Evens or odds on the left or right side of the road. I think evens are normally on the west. So you would have to change that here because this road layer, if we cancel out of this, you'll see this road layer, all it has is just the name. So if we go to our example with the center lines and go back to here, this actually has the left from, right from. It knows which is evens and odds. So this was 1958 is what it tried to give us with that tool. If we now choose here, you'll see it's doing 1955. So that is that's the center lines are giving it more information compared to the other. So hopefully that answered your question. Leslie's telling me I'm out of time. I'm a little too windy today. So if you have more questions, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to walk you through it one-on-one.
We do have one more. It's regarding center lines. So we will reach out to that user individually to answer that question. So thank you, Corey, for going over that valuable information to help our users become more familiar with features WTH has to offer within our GIS platforms. If you found today's session to be helpful and would like to know more, feel free to hop on our website, WTHGIS.com, and register for the other webinars that we have to offer. Just a friendly reminder to watch for that email with the survey link and a recording of what we've learned here in today's session. Any input and feedback is greatly appreciated. You can also review the recording on our website by navigating back to the registration page, where it will soon be posted. If for some reason, after some time, your company's firewall doesn't seem to allow the email to come through, feel free to reach out to a WTH staff member, and we can send you the links directly. Thank you for your friends here at WTH Technology.